What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to episode 11 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lillianwall. I got producer Noah here with me. Producer Noah, say what's up to the people.
It's a dub pod, Ari.
Another
and we were
dub
both
pod.
wrong. We were so wrong.
We were wrong. Yeah, we have another dub pod for you all today. Very exciting. Our second straight dub pod. So we're excited to talk about that. It's always more fun when you've got a dub pod. This was a good dub, so we're gonna vibe out and break down the Seattle Sounders 3-2 dub at Vancouver. It was a crazy game. It was not how we prognosticated that it would go. I said on the preview show that I was willing to be proven wrong about Seattle's ability to score multiple goals in a game without Christian Roldan. I said that if they wanted to disprove that narrative, all they had to do was go out and score multiple goals in the game. And they did that. And this was a much sexier dub than the Houston dub for sure. The Houston dub, it was necessary and it was a good dub, but this is more what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Two separate comebacks, a Leo Chu brace and a Yamar game winner. That was some good stuff. So we're going to get into all of that. We're going to talk about some U.S. men's national team in the Gold Cup because they also had a victory over a Canadian opponent last night. And then a couple quick hitters at the end, and then we'll call it a wrap here for episode 11. But we're going to start with the Seattle Sounders. We're going to start with the Seattle Sounders 3-2 dub at Vancouver. And I mean, just in general, this is going to be a difficult show for the country of Canada today. It just is. And look, I don't necessarily take joy in that. It's nothing personal against the country of Canada. I've been on record for all this. All right, listen, Canadian bacon is good. I don't really know what differentiates Canadian bacon from regular bacon. I guess I could Google that pretty easily. But as I understand it, Canadian bacon is more ham adjacent in terms of the whole vibe as opposed to your more traditional American bacon. But either way, if we're talking about my top options for a pizza, and some people aren't going to like this, but I'm going to say it. A pizza with Canadian bacon and pineapple,
gas.
That's in my top 5 pizza options, and depending on my mood, maybe even top 2 or 3.
You know, I'm also a pineapple on pizza guy, so I'm glad that we share that unpopular opinion.
Well, I mean, I don't really. Yeah, I've never understood why that's unpopular. But either way, this isn't about Canadian bacon or any negative feelings that I have regarding it. And, on top of that, as it pertains to Tim Hortons, I've made my thoughts clear on this, all right?
Correct.
So not only do I like Tim Hortons, I've actively defended it on this show multiple times now. I've defended it multiple times, even in the face of some people from Canada that argue against the merits of Tim Hortons. So this isn't about Tim Hortons. It's not about Canadian bacon. It's not about maple syrup either.
No.
It's not about hockey. But the reality is it was a difficult weekend for the country of Canada on multiple fronts, but especially on the soccer pitch. So we're going to have to talk about both of those things. Apologies to Canada. I'm not in control. Not in control of the results. I can only comment on what's in front of me. And in this case, the country of Canada had a difficult couple of days. All right. It all started on Saturday at BC Place, where the Vancouver Whitecaps were hosting the Seattle Sounders, the same Seattle Sounders that they beat 2-0 at BC Place back in May. The same Seattle Sounders that have scored multiple goals in a game one time since April. And unfortunately for the Vancouver Whitecaps and the country of Canada, the Seattle Sounders won this game 3-2. Yamar with the game winner in second half stoppage time. And that was the first time that the Sounders had the lead in this game. They went down 1-0 and 2-1, came back to tie it both times, then got the game winner in, I think it was the 92nd minute. But this game was all about Leo Chu. And really, the last stretch of this season for Seattle has been all about Leo Chu. Leo Chu scored 2 goals in this game. He's getting all kinds of attention from the national pundits.
Player of the week.
They named him MLS Player of the Match Day now,
Player of the Match Day.
As it's now referred to as. He also made MLS Team of the Week along with Jackson Reagan and Brian Schmetzer. So really, a lot of national press for the squad this week. Seattle, they were kind of the main characters in a good way for this dub. They got a lot of attention for it, I think, rightfully so, given the dramatic nature of it. But Leo Chu, he's been the only one on this team making things happen on offense consistently for many weeks now. Without Christian Roldan and Jordan Morris, that's been Seattle's whole offense. It's get Leo Chu running down the left side, hit him with a through ball over the top, let him cook on the right back and send in across. That's the whole offense. And as one-dimensional as it's been at times, they really should have racked more goals off of it than they have because Leo Chu's been cooking. And there's still a couple plays every game where the end product could be sharper. But on the whole, he's been making the right runs. He's been timing them up correctly. He's been connecting with the other midfielders very well. And he's putting himself in situations to create opportunities. And he's either not had enough runners in the box for the service to be dangerous, or the strikers aren't finishing the chances. But on the whole, he's been playing well this whole time, and he got rewarded for it in this game. Both times the Sounders were losing in this game, first after they conceded the set-piece goal to Ranko Veselinovic, then after they went down 2-1 on the Ryan Gauld goal, Leo Chu scored the equalizer. We could talk about Vancouver's goals. Their first goal from Ranko came off a set-piece, and that made it 1-0. And when that happened, I was just like, all right, here we go again.
Yep.
Team's playing reasonably well, but not scoring, concede a soft goal. Now they're going to be behind the 8 ball and basically just hoping they can pull off a 1-1. But credit to Seattle. They got the equalizer after Ranko scored that. So they didn't fold. They had it at 1-1. But then Ryan Gauld got Vancouver's second goal. That one's a little harder to prevent. I watched the replay a few times. I think that was a good play by Vancouver.
He split the defenders perfectly.
He split them perfectly. It came off a goal kick, so you never want to concede off that. But it was a good goal kick, and then Brian White actually made a good play on that header. He's contesting for the header with Yamar, and what he did was he gave Yamar just like a little body shot, just enough to knock him back for a half second, to make it harder for him to contest the header. And that body shot gave him just enough time to win the header outright. And he flicked it on perfectly, like you said, between Alex Roldan and Jackson Reagan. And then Gauld had the run timed up, so it basically becomes a breakaway on Steph Cleveland after that. Maybe Jackson could have been shaded a little more towards Ryan Gauld when the goal kick was coming in, but really as soon as Yamar loses the header, I don't really think it would have mattered. So I think on that play, you got to give it to Vancouver. They executed that one well. Seattle also probably should have had a penalty kick in the first half.
Two.
Yeah, there were arguably 2 handballs on that sequence, neither of which were awarded. The first one, I was actually good with the no call. I can't remember who it was.
I agree.
Off the top of my head, but
it was pretty run of play.
Well, the way I try and look at that is, I always try and look at it like if they had called that, if the roles were reversed and it was Seattle getting called for the potential handball, like how pissed would I be if I was awarded?
Right.
So if it was Seattle in that situation on the first one,
yeah,
I would have been like, dude, that's so harsh.
Soft.
That's soft. That's ticky-tack. So I was good with them not awarding the first one. The second one on Felipe Martins, that is a handball. That's a handball. I don't really know how that doesn't get.
Not a great week for pro.
No, it was not. We'll talk about that. But the Felipe Martin ones should have hit a handball. But I was all ready to give a big speech about how much that I don't care about that call if Seattle had tied or lost this game. You got to be able to score from open play or on your set pieces.
Correct.
You cannot rely on the refs to be... Those calls are 50-50, okay? Sometimes you're going to get them. Sometimes you're not going to get them. If you're banking on that to get your results, that's not a sustainable way to do it. If they had tied that game 1-1 off a penalty kick off that handball, but hadn't generated any other chances on offense and didn't score any goals from open play, would have been a fine result, but that wouldn't have changed anything as far as the team's outlook on offense. What they needed to do was score some goals, either from the run of play or off their set pieces. So luckily, I don't really have to give that whole speech about how much I don't care about that handball call, because they scored 2 goals off set pieces and then scored the game winner from open play. So thankfully, that whole penalty kick saga turned out to be irrelevant because I was going to be pretty annoyed with the discourse off that if that had factored into the result.
I tend to get frustrated with, I would say, the casual Twitter fan about complaining, putting it all on the refs. Like, if it comes down to you not scoring a penalty or not being awarded a penalty,
that's on you.
That's on you guys.
That's on you.
That's on you guys.
And to their credit, there was no sulking.
No.
Seattle bared down. They put their heads down. They got 3 goals.
Well, I mean, there was no sulking, but in the moment when everyone was screaming for a handball and not playing on, that did bother me a little bit. I don't know about you.
Oh,
but it seemed like they were like, not again, not again. We need to just get a goal back.
I guess it didn't end up impacting the game or the overall performance. Is more my point.
I guess the moment more was
in the moment. You're right. They were going for the call, but I mean, I think that's honestly an understandable reaction because the Felipe Martins one, I don't really know how that's not a handball, but whatever.
I don't know. I'm more of a play to the whistle guy, but that's tiki-taka semantics.
You do have to play to the whistle. Both of the 2 goals that Leo Chu scored in this game came off set pieces, and that's honestly one of my most important takeaways from this game. When you're struggling to generate offense from open play, set pieces can be the remedy. And Seattle hasn't been dangerous enough on set pieces over this last stretch with Christian out. It had gotten to the point these last few weeks where every time they got a corner kick, I was like, okay, this is basically meaningless. Nothing's going to happen with this. But Seattle was dominant on set pieces in this game. Both of these goals were executed perfectly. You got to give credit to the coaching staff for that. Brian Schmetzer, after the game, said that Andy Rose was the one that scouted that up. He saw something on film where Vancouver was vulnerable, and Seattle exploited it to perfection. The formula on both of those, they were basically carbon copies of one another. The first one was from halfway between the midfield line and the 18. Perfect service from Nico Ladero. Jackson Reagan wins his one-on-one and heads it in front of goal, and Leo Chu finishes it easily. The second one was a corner kick with perfect service from Nico Ladero. Jackson Reagan wins his header, heads it in front of goal, and Leo Chu finishes it easily. You can't scheme it up any better, can't execute it any better. So that was just great to see. They need to be more dangerous on set pieces while they're kind of struggling like this in attack, and that was what helped them get the win in this game. So they needed to do that, and it was great to see him get it done. Dominant performance on set pieces. A lot of you out there, and I think you know who you are, you should really be retracting and taking accountability for your takes on Leo Chu. A lot of you were calling Leo Chu a bust. You said it was a bunk signing. And the thing is, you were saying that before he had gotten any sort of consistent run of minutes. He got here in 2021, barely played, started 8 games in 2022, was mostly playing in spot duty off the bench. He never got a consistent enough run to say whether he was a bust or not. And I was saying this the whole time. Like, you cannot make an evaluation on this player one way or the other until he actually gets a consistent run of minutes to be able to say that. So everyone who had their little analyst hat on saying he wasn't good enough and was a bust signing, hopefully we got a little lesson here on the concept of sample size, actually making your evaluations based on an actual set of data. If a guy hasn't played, you can say that you want him to play more to find out. And that was my point the whole time, is you got to play him. You got to play him to find out. I said before this season started that he needs to have a big role on this team this year. He needs to play a lot of minutes, and then you can evaluate. But you can't call someone a bust with that small of a sample size. That's not good analysis, all right? And there was a lot of tweets over the last year and a half or so to the effect that Leo Chu is a bust. And now we're finding out, now that he's gotten a consistent run, that is not the case. Leo Chu is breaking out. It's time to call it. Player of the match day for match day 24, as we mentioned. 3 goals, 8 assists in about 1,200 minutes now. I don't want to hear it about how 4 of those assists all came in one game against Sporting Kansas City.
Let me see you get 4 assists in one professional game. I'm sorry.
It's just not how it works. You don't get to just hack 4 assists off the total because it doesn't fit your narrative. Every assist.
This isn't XG, folks. We don't make up numbers.
This is real assists.
Yep.
Every assist that he got in that game counts towards his stat total. He gets credit for those. Still don't really understand where people get the notion that you can just take stats away like that. You see it with Jordan Morris and Jesus Ferreira most recently with the U.S. national team all the time. People just look at the opponent and they're like, I don't think that opponent counts. That goal doesn't count. People were doing it with Leo Chu. But, we're going to retire that talking point. If you can just hack Leo Chu's assist total because 4 of them came in one game, so those don't count, then you also have to count all the ones where he should have had an assist but didn't get one because the strikers couldn't finish, don't you? I could do that just as easily. That's happened at least 5 or 6 times this year where he's created a sitter and the strikers haven't finished it. So if you want to hack 4 from the Sporting game, I get to add 5 or 6 that he didn't get because of the strikers. So try that one on for Saz. Think about that. Food for thought.
Think about it.
Leo Chu was everywhere in this game, though. It wasn't just the goals. He was cooking. Not only did he score the 2 goals and light it up on the left side all night long, he also drew that second yellow card on Matias Laborda right before second half stoppage time. That put Seattle up a man. I watched the replay of that yellow a few times because I always try and look at those when a guy takes a second yellow like that and, think about, was it avoidable or did he have to do it? And in this case, Leo Chu had him cooked on that play. He had him beat on the run, and Nico put the through ball in to where if Laborda lets Leo Chu by him, he's off and running. There's acres of space, and it's very likely a dangerous opportunity if he lets him make the run. But he did have an interesting calculation to make because he was already on a yellow. So he knew that if I make this foul, there's at least a 50-50 chance, probably greater, that I get sent off here. So he had to make a split-second call. Do I let him by and yield a dangerous opportunity, or do I take this foul and risk getting sent off? He ends up taking the foul, and there's arguments both ways as to whether he should have done that. It wasn't dog-so in this case, but it was about to be a dangerous run. And the thing is, they were so far away from goal, and that's why I wouldn't have done it if I was Laborda. It was a bad play. They're so far away from goal, and Leo Chu only had one runner, Rui Diaz, and the Whitecaps had him double-marked. But it's a tough situation. If you let him by and Seattle scores off it, you give up the game winner, then you're probably in the doghouse with the coaches. So he took the foul, got sent off, and then credit to Seattle, though. They capitalized pretty much immediately. The game winner came on one of the first sequences after the red card. Yamar scored on the rebound, but that goal was created by Nico Ladero, Albert Rusnak, and Leo Chu.
God, that Rusnak flick was...
Yep, I was just gonna say, so good interplay between those three, and just great ball by Albert to put Leo Chu in on goal. Another tough day for the Albert Rusnak is bad crowd. Yeah. I hope that crowd was watching that play. I don't know if you all saw it, but that pass, that goal doesn't happen without a perfect lofted ball by Rusnak to find Leo Chu. Leo Chu has a rip across the face of goal. Whitecaps goalkeeper makes a good kick save. That ball's going in if he doesn't get his foot to it, and Leo Chu would have had a hattie. But kick save deflects out to Yamar, who just kicks the shit out of it. And all he really had to do was get it on target because the Whitecaps defense was scrambling. Their goalkeeper was on his back from making the kick save. Yamar converts 3-2, and that's ball game. 3 points, second straight win.
Was that not the perfect Sounders goal?
What do you mean?
Was that like, for one, to prove all the haters wrong? There's lots of haters about Rusnak and Raul being washed, Nico being washed, all of this stuff, right? And then for Yamar, who, some people are like the greatest CB of all time, as we talked about in the older, a couple episodes ago, which he's not, but it was such good interplay and just such a good Sounders goal altogether of like the technically well executed and just taking advantage of the moment and the opportunity that they were given. Like something that I feel like we haven't seen in a little, like with this lineup yet. I don't know. It just felt very Sounders-esque.
Yeah. Well, so when we were talking about the game winner from the Houston game, we were talking about how the one touch, the interplay, the quick passing and stuff, how all that looked like the team looked earlier in the season when they were in really good form.
Yeah.
And yeah, that goal was the exact same thing. That the one touch, interplay, combination play, all that stuff was really on point on that goal. So yeah, no, I think that's a good shout. And another thing on that is I will say Nico Ladero had a great game. He was cooking.
He did.
He was cooking. Like you said, there's been a lot of talk about how washed he is. I have not been ready to say that because honestly, there's been about as much of a performance or as much of a sample of Nico looking like old Nico this year as there has been of him being less productive. The less productive stretch is just the most recent stretch. So that's what people are. It's a little bit bias. It's a little bit of recency bias with that. But early on in the season, I've said it before, Nico looked pretty much just like old Nico. I see nothing to suggest that his work rate and fitness and athletic ability have diminished at all. So, I don't fully know why he hasn't been as productive the last few weeks. I mean, these last few games, he's been playing out of position at right mid. I don't know how much that has to do with it because he floats all over the field anyway, no matter where he's playing. The guy basically plays all three midfield spots every game. So
correct.
He's a player where it shouldn't matter that much where you line him up. But either way, he looked a lot like his old self in this game. He picked up 2 secondary assists, which I guess let's go on a tangent real quick. No,
let's do it.
You were saying that you think secondary assists are Mickey Mouse.
I don't think that they're Mickey Mouse. I just don't think that they're like straight up assists. I get it if it's like you play in a ball, it deflects off a defender, and then someone scores that, and like giving the person who.
But you don't get MLS doesn't give an assist for those.
Okay, well then I don't know. Hockey assists are weird. They're Mickey Mouse.
Okay, so a lot of people have that take and say that secondary assists are Bush League because MLS is the only league really that counts them. I feel like the concept of a secondary assist makes perfect sense. If you think about it, the guy who lays in the pass that allows the guy to pick up the assist, you're contributing to the goal. You are assisting on the goal. Both of these set piece goals, which Nico Lodeiro got secondary assists on, Jackson Reagan can't head in those assists if the initial delivery from Lodeiro isn't perfect. So the whole sequence is, attributable to those three guys. It results in I don't know. I just feel
I hear
in principle, people are like, how could you count this? And it's like, well, logically, I don't really see what doesn't make sense about that. The third guy is contributing to the goal in equal parts as the second guy. You could say, where do you draw the line? Like, what about the fourth, fifth, sixth guy in the sequence? Yeah, that's kind of
my argument.
Okay, well, you draw the line at 2 degrees of separation. The third, the first guy who puts the ball in, the second guy who gets the primary assist. Those are the 2 guys who get the assists, and then anything past that, you're talking probably more degrees of separation than should rightfully be contributed on the stat sheet, the way I see it. But
that makes sense.
The guy who puts in the initial ball, he's assisting on the goal. Lodeiro should get assists for those. Those are great passes that Jackson Reagan can't get the primary assist if Nico Lodeiro is not putting in the perfect ball for the secondary assist. I don't know. That's my soapbox on that because you see a lot.
I think for the first time in Lobbing Scorchers history, you changed my mind live on the pod because that's actually a really good argument there. I don't think that there's I never really had a problem with appreciating the interplay and stuff like that. So fuck it, why not?
Yeah, I mean,
why not? It's all assists are really who gives a fuck anyway.
Well, so here's my thing. Everyone calls MLS Bush League because they're the only league that counts secondary assists. But what if all the other leagues are actually Bush League for not giving secondary assists?
I don't know if I agree with that one.
People don't really think about that. I'm just saying it's something to think about.
Yeah, Premier League is Bush League.
Yeah, exactly.
Compared to MLS.
Until they get secondary assists, I don't really know how they can call themselves on the level of Major League Soccer. But
agreed.
Anyway, we talked about the Leo Chu breakout, and that's the one that's getting most of the attention from the national pundits. But there's another breakout taking place for Seattle that's equally significant. Jackson Reagan is breaking out.
God, I love him. 2
assists in this game, primary assists. That gives him 3 for the season, and I've been pining for exactly this. Jackson Reagan is 6'6", okay? He's one of the more physically imposing presences in the league from the center back position, and Seattle has not made enough use of that so far in his career. He should be a target on pretty much every set piece like Chad Marshall used to be. He has all the physical attributes, namely height, to be a dominant aerial player, and he is on defense. So it was great to see Seattle scheme up set pieces where they're letting him use his height to crush those headers. And in this game, he ends up picking up 2 assists, both on 1v1 headers that he won easily because he's 6'6" and the other guy is not 6'6". If If Jackson Reagan adds that element to his game, and I want to see him start getting looks on goal in those situations too. But if he adds that element to his game, he has the potential to be a dominant player because it's all there on defense. His long passing is really good. His other assist this season came off that long pass to Christian Roldan in Charlotte. So if he becomes a dominant aerial presence on set pieces, on attacking set pieces too, I mean, we're talking about a guy who should probably go to Europe. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. Like, he could be that beastly of a presence when you combine his physical gifts with his passing ability, his defending, and now he's having multi-assist games, 1 goal, 2 assists from your center backs in this game. That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff.
That's insanely
You love
good
to
stuff.
see that. And Jackson Reagan is looking like a beast, more and more of a beast every week. This guy, putting a 6'6" domestic CB on this roster, it's been a huge boost. It really has. So
he was good in college, but I watched him because I was at Penn State, watched him play at Michigan, watched him lose to Penn State. Unfortunate, but I could have never predicted that he would be this dominant. He's a really good player.
He's lights out. He's been lights out. Stephen Cleveland was fantastic in this game.
I was going to ask you about
Stephen
him.
Fry, yeah. I said on the preview show that I was not worried about Steph Cleveland filling in, that he's looked like an MLS number 1 to me from everything that I've seen. Never saw anything to dissuade me of that notion. And this game did nothing to dissuade me from that notion. To be a number 1 goalkeeper in a top flight league, you have to not just make the saves that you're supposed to make. You have to make the ones you're not supposed to make. You have to be able to make the ones that change games. Steph Cleveland did that twice in this game. He had the one on Sebastian Berhalter in the first half, which was honestly one of the best saves I've seen in MLS this season.
It was so sick.
Then he did it again on the one just a few minutes before the red card in the second half. Full extension both times. Those are plays that easily could have been goals if he doesn't stand on his head. So shout out Steph Cleveland. You got to give him his flowers. He was not just a functional, capable, filling in backup in this game. He stood out, and he made 2 game-changing saves. They don't win this game unless Steph Cleveland does that.
Not at all.
So I guess, that's just encouraging in the sense that Steph Fry at this point in his career, age 37, not necessarily going to be able to play every single game. You got Leagues Cup coming up. I don't know. I just feel like you need 2 goalkeepers on every team. You need your backup goalkeeper to be able to come in and do that. So it's just good that he's able to do that. And if you need to rotate Steph Fry out at any point again or during Leagues Cup, I don't know if he's going to be out of concussion protocol by Wednesday. So you might see Steph Cleveland again. And I feel fine about that. It was his first start of the season, and
give him some more minutes. Why not?
He played amazing. Yeah. I think that was all I had on the Whitecaps game. So unless you had anything else, Noah, we can get into the San Jose preview.
Tough weekend for all Canadians, but
yeah, sorry,
great
Canada.
weekend for all Seattleites. I think that win cements kind of what I was saying of this version, the second tier version of the Sounders. I mean, it's almost first tier, I would say. Looks like a team that can win like with this lineup, which they should be able to, and come back from 2-goal deficit, 1-goal deficit, and that's exciting.
Well, a point we were making was that they've been running this kind of new look lineup with Jordan and Christian gone.
Yeah,
and they still hadn't really been scoring goals with it until this game. But sometimes it takes a few weeks to get the chemistry, figure out what tactics work, what everyone's roles are going to be like in that new look sort of formation. So I said on the preview show that I was open to the idea that the increased reps and the games under their belt that they have with this lineup now could pay off, and they could actually break out in attack. I didn't necessarily predict or think that it was going to happen. I said I'll believe it when I see it.
Right.
And I completely stand by that as a valid way to look at it based on what we had seen. But it looked a lot better in this game. 2.2 xG in this game, Noah. 2.2 xG. That's really good.
Yeah,
you know how
whatever that means.
how you end up scoring 3 real goals in a game a lot easier is if you get over 2 xG. So that's really what you want to see. If they had scored,
didn't Vancouver have like 0.9
yeah,
xG though?
Exactly. So what does that mean? It means they had 0.6 something. You know what that means? It means that Seattle dominated them pretty much in this game and played a lot better than them, even though it was only 3-2. Realistically, like with how much Seattle was generating on offense compared to what Vancouver was generating on offense, this could have been like more like a multi-goal victory if the final score had reflected what the underlying performances were.
I have one question before we move on.
Yeah.
Rusnak moving to the 10.
Yeah.
And him getting settled into that position more like, and then the way that we've seen this team transition into being able to score, one, being able to score, period, and two, being able to score now multiple goals. How much do you think that has to do with all of that?
Okay, so here's the only caveat that I will give, and it's not much of a caveat, but it's something to think about. Like with 2 of the 3 goals coming off of set pieces, both of the goals that the Sounders have scored from open play over the last 2 games have come when they were up a man, and they didn't score from open play until they were up a man in this game again. So there's no caveat when your goals come off set pieces. Like I said, when you're struggling from open play, you need to try and dominate on set pieces. That's the way to cure it. But I'm not totally sure that the offense is, somehow can be tabbed as like broken out until I want to see them score from open play consistently, Like I think that's still something even after this game where they got the 3 goals. They need to show that they can do that when it's 11 on 11,
right?
As good as the attack or as improved as the attack looked in this game, I don't know if I can look at it and be like, okay, like the new lineup with Rusnak at the 10 is totally cooking and they're going to be racking up 2.2 XG every single game now. A lot of that XG was because those set pieces generated such clean opportunities, which is fine. That's what they're going to have to do. But I guess I still want to see more from this lineup, and they need to be generating consistent chances from open play more still. Like I would say even after getting 3 goals in this game, I still left it feeling like that. And yeah, that's not to say that the set piece goals don't count, like Leo Chu's assist goals don't count. Yeah. Like those count 100%, and it's actually 100% like the thing that they should be honing in the most on in training, I think, is dominating on set pieces, because you saw in this game like how big of a difference, how much of an advantage that can give you if you're dominating on set pieces. But I don't know. Did that answer your question?
That did. That's a good shout.
Okay. The San Jose Earthquakes are up next at PayPal Park on
PPP
Wednesday.
Their loans are going to be forgiven.
So short turnaround for this game against San Jose. The San Jose Earthquakes beat Seattle in Seattle the last time these two teams played back on June 1st, but they've only won one other game since then. That was a 2-1 home victory over the Philadelphia Union. So San Jose are winless in their last 4. They're coming off a 1-1 draw against hungover LAFC at LAFC. And they've lost 2 and drawn 3 over their last 5 games. So it's not like the Quakes are in world-beating form right now. That being said, this is going to be a tough game by definition because you got a short turnaround, and so I expect this to be a heavily, heavily rotated lineup. I would be pretty surprised if you see Rui Diaz start in this game. I think you're looking at Hebert up top in this game. I think
maybe he can get a goal.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'm in for it. Manifesting.
I mean, wasn't your take that he's not going to score one for the rest of the season?
My take is that, but I also would like to see the Sounders win. And as much as I am a not Hebert believer, I'm not evil. I would love to see him do well.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that he gets one, because I am personally of the conviction that a lot of what's going on is he's snake bit. He's having some of the worst luck I've ever seen from a Seattle striker, and I covered Nelson Valdez. All right, so I've seen Nelson Valdez is probably the gold standard in MLS history of an unlucky striker. Everyone remembers the fact that he only scored one league goal for Seattle until the playoff game against Sporting Kansas City. But it's honestly it's very similar. It's very similar. Like Nelson Valdez, I felt so bad for the guy because he just couldn't catch a break. He couldn't catch a break. And he had so many where he just smashed him off the post, or he just somehow missed a sitter. And it's very similar stuff that's going on with Hebert. So we're rooting for Hebert to get a goal in this game. I think he probably gets to start. I think Josh Atencio probably gets to start. I think AB Sissoko probably gets to start. I think Cody Baker probably gets to start. I don't know if all those guys I just ripped off are going to be starting, but it's going to be some lineup like that. You can count on that. Maybe they ride Rusnak again. I think you can probably get away with running out either Rusnak or Ladero at center attacking mid in this game and just sit the other one, and then mix and match in the rest of the midfield if you feel like you got to. But either way, they're gonna have to rotate. They're gonna have to rotate, and hopefully we don't get any complaints or angry tweets about that, because they have to.
Yeah,
they have to. You can't.
What are you gonna do?
You can't run out the exact same 11 for a Wednesday game after a Saturday game. You can't do it. So. We're going to see if this rotated squad can get it done against San Jose. San Jose they're 7-7-8 with a -3 goal differential. So as much positive press from the pundits as they were getting earlier this season, they've come down to earth quite a bit. I think Luchi Gonzalez, he's doing what he can, but their roster probably still has a little ways to go realistically before they're a real Western Conference contender. So it's not Real Madrid is what I'm saying. A rotated squad should be able to pull a draw in this game. I think if you do pull a draw in this game, that's a good result. It's your second of a 2-game road trip. So, I was saying a draw at Vancouver would have been a fine result. I think the same can be said here. They got the dub in Vancouver. If they get a dub here, that would be huge, honestly, because, as tough as things have been the last few weeks, Seattle's in good shape on the table.
Yeah.
They are. They really are. They're at 35 points from 22 matches. St. Louis and LAFC and Austin all only have one game in hand.
Yep.
So it's not like
LAFC are reeling.
Yeah, LAFC are lethally hungover.
Yeah. The only team, honestly, that I'm worried about is RSL.
Well, yeah. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because I had a take on that for the quick hitter section. But
we'll save it for that then.
Yeah, but no, I think everybody should be worried about RSL. LAFC, like I don't really know when they're gonna get over this hangover. It seems like one of those ones that it's like 2 or 3 days later and your head's still throbbing and you're like, God damn, like when's this gonna go away? Do I have to like drink a beer to ease the pain now? But maybe that's just gonna make me feel worse. I don't know. So that's the boat that they're in. But Seattle's only 3 points off the pace of St. Louis City FC.
Yeah.
And so if you can poach one,
why not?
At San Jose here, you're going to be right up there with them. They if St. Louis wins their game, they're still going to be that 3 points clear, but
I'm hoping for a draw in that match.
For in the St. Louis match?
St. Louis LAFC, yeah.
Okay, so is that who plays this?
Yeah, St. Louis LAFC.
That's actually perfect for Seattle, because a draw would be beneficial because both of those teams would drop points. But if one loses and Seattle beats San Jose, then you get padding on whoever lost.
Correct.
But I picked St. Louis in that game at this point. Is it in St. Louis?
Let's check. It is. I think it is. Yeah, it is. It looks like it is.
I think it would have.
Oh
to
no,
be.
it's in BMO Stadium.
It's at BMO Stadium.
Yeah.
All right. I think a result is attainable for St. Louis City in that game, just with how LAFC have looked lately. LAFC. This will be their second road game.
for St. Louis City when they just pulled off the win in Toronto. So
yeah, and St. Louis, both of their big DPs are hurt, and they've still been racking wins, but
yeah.
At a certain point, you have to wonder when that's going to catch up to them.
Yeah. I mean, they stacked wins against the Quakes and
Toronto
the Rapids
FC, right?
and Toronto.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. They're riding like Slam and Sam Adeniran and Azriel Jackson, and those young guys have been doing well, but I question how far that can really take them until they get Joao Klaus and Edward Lowen back.
Yeah. I think we haven't really mentioned this that much, but the Sounders are in a position where if they can kind of pick it up in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, they could easily push into first place and hold that, especially St. Louis City with those injuries. LAFC, God knows what the hell's going on with LAFC. So you don't know how long they're going to be out. But if they start stacking points, period, that's not a bad look.
Number one seed in the West is right there. I think it's kind of funny because the discourse around the team this entire last stretch of games has been so negative. There's been so much talk about it's time to blow it up. This season is chalked. And, I'm not going to say I don't understand where it's coming from because the results have been poor. The performances haven't been much better, and they've taken a couple of really bad L's at home.
Yeah.
So it's not like I would expect anything different necessarily. But if you've been keeping track of the table this entire time, they are right in it for a top 2 seed in the West.
Right.
They're in second right now, and first place is right in striking distance. So there's everything to play for this season. It's all about this season right now. It's not about the future. It's not about blowing it up. It's not about moving on from Nico Ladero and all that stuff. You get to that at the end of the season. Right now, it's all about gunning for that number 1 seed, and it's there for the taking if they can get on a good run of form. And Christian and Jordan are coming back eventually, and that's really going to help. We have seen what this team looks like on offense with Christian Roldan playing. Okay?
Yeah.
There's going to be some interesting lineup decisions because I don't know if you put Rusnak back a line when Jordan and Christian get back, and do you have to start Nico at the 10, or do you drop Albert back, or do you keep Albert up higher and use Nico as a super sub? Is Nico even in the first choice 11 anymore? That's a good debate. We're probably going to have that debate when those guys get back. But for now, it's all about trying to rack these points by whatever means necessary, and they're going to try and do that midweek at San Jose. San Jose is a lot better team at home. They're one of those classic MLS teams that's pretty dominant at home but can't win on the road. They're 6-1-4 at home, so that shows that they're really hard to beat at home. But it also shows that you can poach a draw off these guys. You can poach a draw off these guys at PayPal if you play your cards right. So it should be an interesting one. It's going to be a wonky lineup. We'll see what happens, but definitely tune into Apple TV on Wednesday.
It'll be a good game.
We're gonna be Quakes games are always entertaining.
They're hunting for a win because they're winless in 5. So
exactly.
That's gonna be, they want one.
They want one. They've got some good players. We saw that when they won in Seattle. Christian Espinoza was an MVP candidate earlier in the season. He slowed down a little bit. Jeremy Abobisi is a high end MLS striker. So they definitely have some guys, but you can get at them on defense for sure. And their starting goalkeeper Daniel, got a red card in their last game. So they're not going to have their starting goalkeeper, who's really, really good. So I guess Seattle can hope that plays in their favor a little bit. I think they'll probably be starting JT Marcinkowski, who I believe is still their backup, and he's a fine goalkeeper, but Daniel is much better. So. I think that about wraps it for the Quakes preview. Going to jump into some U.S. men's national team Gold Cup takes now.
The second of the bad days for Canada. Well, same day.
Yeah.
Right?
So it didn't get any better for the country of Canada on the international level than it did in the MLS level. I'm sorry to report, Canada.
Oof.
The Canadian men's national team has been eliminated from the Gold Cup by the United States in penalty kicks, 2-2 in regulation. Then the U.S. won the shootout. Matt Turner made 2 saves in the shootout. Then a Canadian bammed the last one off the post to win it for the U.S. So shout out to Matt Turner. You know, as soon as that game went to penalties, I was like, okay, Matt Turner versus Dane St. Clair. I'm taking us here all day.
Easy.
All day. And sure enough, he saved each of the first 2. Matt Turner, you really can't say it enough. He's such a beast, man. Did you know this, Noah? He's saved 14 of 29 penalties that he's faced in his professional career.
That's pretty crazy.
That is a mind-boggling stat. I mean, this guy...
Penalty merchant.
He's a penalty merchant. And, like, I feel like he doesn't even really get talked about as a penalty merchant because he's mainly known as an elite shot stopper.
Yeah.
But... Like I said, like I had zero nerves that we were going to lose the game when it went to a shootout and it was Matt Turner versus Dane St. Clair. I was like, that we have the edge there. You know, it's penalties and it's a toss up every time. But like, you give me that situation ahead of time, I'm always taking Matt Turner. The U.S. looked pretty bad in this game.
Yeah, they did.
So
yeah, they did.
A lot of people aren't happy about that. I made the mistake of going into the USMNT Twitter mentions after the goal on the tweets about the goals that we conceded.
Come on, that's content.
It was a bad call. The anonymous bots weren't happy, and you know I realize it's pointless to point out, but you know this is the B squad, and when I say B squad, I want to be very clear that I never mean that in a derogatory way at all. All it means is that this squad is not the first choice group that we saw in Nations League, and it's not the group of players in the pool that we would be starting if we had like a must-win game or a game in a actually big tournament. Like, no offense to the Gold Cup, but it's like it's a developmental type tournament where you're kind of just trying to get looks for the deeper guys in the pool. So yeah, you know, for anyone wondering, I saw a lot of comments on Twitter that were like, "Why didn't you just call in the first choice guys? This is a disgrace. What a joke. Look at all these MLS players. Why would you not call in Christian Pulisic and Gio for the Gold Cup?" And, you know, just to clarify, the answer to that is because that would be fucking stupid and pointless to call in the exact same Nations League team for the Gold Cup. First of all, they just played Nations League right before. That final was 6 days before the Gold Cup started, all right? So I don't think it would make a lot of sense to just throw that exact team into a different tournament 6 days later. But more importantly than that, it just makes way more sense to use a tournament like this to evaluate the other guys in the pool. Giving minutes to the B squad guys is how you find out which ones can contribute to the A squad. All right, that's not hard to understand. We could have called in the A squad and smashed Canada in this game like we did in Nations League, but you don't gain anything from that. The A squad we already know about. You don't need any more data points or evaluation on Gio or Pulisic or Yunus Musa or Weston McKennie. So you just got to be an adult about it and realize that there's going to be a quality drop-off. We might not win the tournament, but these are still good data points for the other group of players in the pool. And for that reason, I'm rooting for us to win, and I'm glad that we won just because I want to see this group of players get as much minutes as possible to see what they can do. When Brandon Vasquez put us up 1-0 in the 88th, I promise I'm not joking. I was thinking to myself, I really wouldn't mind like if Canada got the equalizer here, because then we would get to cook in extra time a little bit and we can see a little bit more from these players. And I'm pretty sure we're still going to win because we've been outplaying Canada. And the only reason that they tied it was because we gave up a really dumb penalty. The Gold Cup in general has also showed that the BJ Callahan is the greatest coach of all time crowd. You probably should have just slowed your roll from the jump on that. It's so funny to me that there were actually these takes flying around during Nations League. Like, look at how good we look with BJ Callahan. All right, just think about it. BJ Callahan calling the shots. This guy clearly knows what he's doing. And now we get to the Gold Cup. We look pretty bad because there's a quality drop-off on the roster that got called in. And we're barely taking results against the higher-level teams that we're playing. And now no one's saying anything about the coaching. You know? Funny how that works.
Well, that's not true, because one of my favorite things on U.S. men's national team Twitter right now are the conspiracy theories that Greg is secretly coaching the team, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I would love it if Greg was shadow coaching. Yeah, there was some funny memes going around. A handle for Ian, our friend, he had a really good bit going of great actual coaching by BJ Callahan on that Vasquez goal, but terrible shadow coaching from Greg to give up the equalizer. It's so stupid, man. I barely even lend credence to the shadow coaching thing. Like I feel like that's from like the deep QAnon section of it.
Dude, he's been the coach. He's been the coach. If like what? I don't. What do you mean? Like. He's been the coach of the team.
But, just to be clear, the reason that we looked so good in Nations League was because the players on the A squad are, A, really good, and B, it seems pretty clear to me, took some kind of significant developmental leap. Like, we've never looked that good under any coach. And a lot of the time, the coach is only as good as the roster, man. That is why you can have a situation where we look like one way in Nations League, and then we look another way in the Gold Cup with the same guy coaching the team, okay?
Correct.
That's the biggest thing, the quality of the player pool and how they work together and whether they develop or not. Those are the things that affect the results on the field more than who the coach is. And that's why I don't really care about this Berhalter rehire one way or the other, and I think it's probably fine because I feel more confident in the quality of the first-choice player pool than I ever have after seeing what they looked like in Nations League, and that's the most important thing. So I don't say that. No knock on BJ Callahan. I've been on record saying that he's doing a fine job on this interim stint. I'm just saying, if you were talking about how good he was during Nations League and how he deserved the full-time job based off that, then it just doesn't really logically follow that you're not criticizing him for the lackluster results and performances that we've had in the Gold Cup, does it? No. You can't have that one way in Nations League and then when there's a drop-off in the Gold Cup, not point out the same thing. I don't think it works like that. So either way, we probably should have lost this game. Brandon Vasquez put us up 1-0 in the 88th minute or something. Free him, send him to the Bundesliga. And at that point, it's pretty criminal that we didn't just see that game out. Miles Robinson gave up an egregiously bad penalty that allowed Canada to tie it. And that was his second handball of the game. He got bailed out in the first half. He committed a handball, and they VAR'd it, and it would have been a penalty kick. The only reason it wasn't a penalty kick is because they also spotted a foul on the play that negated the entire play, so the handball was canceled. But that really could have been a penalty. And then the one he gave up the equalizer on, he's making a challenge on the ball with his arm fully extended out. And, he got unlucky that it deflected off of it, but I feel like you got to have your hands behind your back right there. Do the Nuhu. You can't have your arm out like that. You're risking the handball every time. So rough game for Miles, rough game for both the CBs. Jalen Neal had a rough one too. But see, that like the Jalen Neal thing is one where I give some grace and I'm not going to harp on the kid for it. Jalen Neal is 19. He's probably playing for the senior team before he's fully ready realistically. That's what it looked like to me. But that's the thing with these Gold Cup games. It's a chance to give guys like that a run and let them sink or swim. Why not? It's the fucking Gold Cup. Doesn't matter. In this case, I think he sank a little bit, but if they're high on him as a prospect internally, there is nothing wrong with throwing him out there and living with the growing pains, of which there were a few in this game. But in the end, the back line was bad in this game. There's kind of no way around that.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacob Schaffelberg, we had him out there looking like a multi-million-dollar transfer target. He was cooking Brian Reynolds.
Yeah, he was.
Okay? Jacob Schaffelberg plays for Nashville SC. He's a Toronto FC homegrown. He's a fine MLS player. He's having a good little year for Nashville SC, actually. He's not that good. He should not have been eating Brian Reynolds' lunch the entire game, or at least the entire time he was on the field. I'm not sure. He might have subbed on. But, I mean, he was out-competing whoever we had on the right side of the field the entire time he was out there. He absolutely bammed on Matt Miazga on the go-ahead goal that they scored in extra time. So just a pretty rough game on defense. But, I mean, credit to the U.S. for getting the equalizer after Schaffelberg scored that and then winning the shootout. It's fine. We're moving on. No harm done. My only other big takeaway from this game is that Brandon Vasquez is winning the sweepstakes for one of those backup forward spots.
True.
We should obviously, I think, be starting Balogun in every game of consequence, but, this three-man horse race for the backup 9 spot with Brandon Vasquez, Ricardo Pepi, and Jesus Ferreira, Pepi still has a good shout, but I think Vasquez is arguably the front runner.
Yeah, I agree.
He scored 2 big goals in this tournament. And they were against the two higher level teams that we've played, in Jamaica and in Canada. And as much as I think the Jesus Ferreira's goals against minnows argument is pretty dumb, in the same way that Leo Chu's 4 assists don't count argument is dumb, I think it does work in Vasquez's favor here that he's scoring the goals in the bigger games against the higher level opponents. I do think you have to weight that. If neither of them were scoring against the minnows or in the big games, that would be a tough situation. Or if they were both only scoring against the minnows, it might be harder to evaluate it. But
I think they're different strikers, though.
They are different strikers, and Jesus Ferreira,
he's a finesse guy.
He also, this game, I don't even know what they had him doing in this game.
They did the same thing they did in the World Cup, where they shot in 4,000 crosses to this 5'7" guy and prayed.
Well, but then at one point after Vasquez subbed on, Ferreira dropped back to he was a 10, but then he was also out wide and launching in crosses like he was a winger.
Yeah, it was so
I don't
odd.
know if BJ Callahan told him to play just whatever spot he felt like or what was going on, but either way, he was not playing as a 9 for a lot of that game.
No.
He was the start, but it evolved into this thing where he was kind of just freestyling, which
he was just they let him cook. They said fuck it, let him cook.
They said fuck it, let him cook, and he was cooking, and he didn't score a goal, but Brandon Vasquez did. So, I mean,
this game honestly needed Jordan. This was a Jordan Morris game.
Jordan did sub on for extra time.
Yeah.
And also Christian subbed on too, and we didn't score the equalizer or win the shootout until Christian was on the field. So
correct.
Think
about that.
That's something for you to think about. USMNT Twitter, okay?
Yeah.
Think about that one.
Yeah. We'll keep Jordan, but you can call
just
up
with Christian and Jordan. At least it's just another situation where people are going to talk about how they weren't doing anything. Christian was out there. They had him playing right back. They literally did the right back rolled on meme for the national team.
Yes.
I never have had any idea what Christian Roldan's role is supposed to be for the U.S. men's national team. It's obnoxious. They've played him as a holding mid. They've played him at right mid. They've played him at center mid.
They put him at goalkeeper.
They do what the Sounders do, which is put him wherever. So he's never been given a defined role. So he goes out there in an undefined role, doesn't look fully acclimated or fully comfortable because he's playing in a role that hasn't been defined with players that he hasn't played a lot yet. Everyone talks about how underwhelming the performance is when a lot of the times it was 10 minutes at the end of the game out of position with players that he hasn't played with a lot. So that is just always way too small of a sample size to credibly evaluate, but people want to fire their takes off anyway. If you're going to call him in, give him a role.
Yeah,
give him an actual role. Tell him what his position is. Don't put him out there in extra time playing right back. I mean, it's fine. He can do that, but you're never going to get a good idea of what he can really contribute to the team unless you give him a role. So, I mean, that's my rant on that. I just saw him out there at right back, and I was like, dude, are you kidding me? I talk about that as a joke when Seattle does it.
Right.
Then they drafted his brother, who ended up actually becoming right back rolled on, so he didn't have to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And then now he's getting called into the national team, and they're doing it again. Seattle finally was all right, we're putting him at right mid. That's his position.
And now they can't play without him.
And now the offense can't function without him. And now the U.S. national team is putting him at right back. It's ridiculous, man.
It's like crack, dude. Once you go rolled on, you never go back.
I don't know.
Or whatever that saying is. I have no clue.
I wasn't even going to talk about it on the pod, but you reminded me of the right. I saw right back rolled on for the U.S. national team, and I was just like, bro, what are we talking about? What are we doing?
It's because Greg is shadow coaching. I'm telling you.
Shadow coach Greg, give Christian, I don't care what position it is.
Yeah.
If it's right back, I thought he probably looked better than Brian Reynolds did. Everyone's talking about how Brian Reynolds is the future behind Dest or whatever because he plays in Italy. And my guy went out there and got absolutely cooked on by Jacob Schaffelberg.
Who?
All right?
Who?
So, maybe Joe Scally looks great in Nations League, but maybe the sweepstakes behind Serginho Dest should include Christian Roldan. I don't know. I'm not trying to bag on Brian Reynolds. I'm just saying it's dumb that we got Christian Roldan playing right back. If you're going to commit to that and make him a right back. Come out and say it. BJ, I'm putting the pressure on you. Give the man an actual role.
Chance.
Give the man a chance. Couple other quick hitters from around MLS, and then we can call it a wrap on episode 11, Noah.
Woo.
Let's see. What did I have? Bruce Arena was very unhappy after this week's slate of games. He was pissed, and he actually had a right to be. You know, I have my share of fun with Bruce Arena's disgruntled press conferences after there's a call that he doesn't like. But this was really, really bad. This was probably the worst pro referee error of the season. It was one of those ones where they had to issue an official statement. You know, they were like, we screwed this one up.
Unfortunately,
we're going to have to apologize. We apologize to the New England Revolution. That was our bad. You should have had a draw, but instead you took an L. Our fault. We're not changing the result, but our bad. Basically what happened was New England was playing the New York Red Bulls. They were down 2-1 in the 93rd minute. Andrew Farrell scored a really great goal for them. It was a shame it was erroneously waved off. It was a banger from outside the box. And they called the New England striker for being in the field of vision of the goalkeeper in an offside position, which is technically that is supposed to disallow a goal. So the referee went, he VAR'd it, and he looked at it, and he saw that the striker was in an offside position, and immediately, or I don't know if it was immediate. It might have been a 25-minute check. I hope not, because they ended up getting the call wrong.
Yeah.
But so the striker Veroni was in an offside position, but what they missed was that there was a deflection on the shot. And if there's a deflection on the shot and the offside guy is blocking the goalkeeper's field of vision, it doesn't matter because the shot was deflected, so the goal should stand. And the referee somehow went to VAR, looked at the replay, I'm assuming multiple times because they always look at it 27 times.
Correct.
And he still got the call wrong. He got the call wrong and disallowed the goal, even though that there is a clear deflection that you could see on the replay. So Pro had to issue an apology. The Revs got hosed. They took a 2-1 L when they should have had a really good 2-2 draw. And, I feel like I've been pretty consistent on this show. I'm not someone who harps on refereeing decisions typically. I think if you're hedging everything on a result based on one call, you can't be leaving it to one 50-50 call. Right?
Correct.
That's most circumstances. You only have yourself to blame if one 50-50 call determines whether you got the result you wanted or not. But what you can't have is situations where refs are going and looking at the VAR and still missing the call. That just blows my mind, man. You have the replay right there. Like, everyone else can see it. How do you miss that?
It's pretty bad.
The whole point of it is so you go look and correct it. So you cannot do that.
No.
You can't have that. That is, I don't know. I feel like you should get suspended as a ref.
Oh, it probably will
if you have that.
I doubt that they'll let the VAR who was on that match and the center official. They'll probably ban him for a undisclosed number of games or whatever.
That was probably the worst call I've seen all season. Bruce was pissed off, rightfully. The Revs got hosed, so unfortunate, but wanted to highlight that one because it was the worst call that I've seen all season. Hungover LAFC drew 1-1 to San Jose at home, so they continue to be hungover. We don't really need to talk about that. LAFC is just hungover.
Unfortunate.
But what I did want to talk about was, and you mentioned it earlier, Noah, but my Real Salt Lake take is looking good.
Yeah, it is.
Mark Kastner at Sounder at Heart, from Sounder at Heart, that hack who writes for that hack website. I'm just kidding. Shout out Mark Kastner. Shout out Sounder at Heart. Shout out Jeremiah O'Shawn. Shout out Dave Clark. But, so I dished the RSL might be cooking take, and then they went down 2-0 in their next game, and he was like, he hit me up on the group chat. He was like, how you feeling? How you feeling about that take now? RSL is losing 2-0. And I was like, just wait for the RSL take. All right. 4-0 over Orlando City SC at America First Field, which is still the dumbest stadium name in the league. But
What are you talking about, brother? Come on now.
4-0 at America First Field. And this was the debut of Chicho Arango. And Chicho Arango scored a goal 23 minutes into the game. All right.
God tier.
RSL has a number 9, and it's even funnier because it's totally at the expense of LAFC. They never wanted to lose Chicho Arango. They had to sell him on to Liga MX because of their salary cap and roster situation. And I think it's incredibly tight that he ended up going to Liga MX, spending like half a season there, and then immediately defecting to RSL, and now turning RSL into what looks like could be a powerhouse. I mean, RSL was balling in this game. Chicho scored 23 minutes into his team debut. Justin Glad scored another goal. Savarino, their other DP, scored a goal. Anderson Julio, who I'm not sure is a DP anymore, but is DP or TAM level player for them, he scored a goal. So I'm telling you all, Real Salt Lake is cooking with gas down there. They're cooking.
I think they're going to finish higher than LAFC.
I think they probably, if they keep cooking like this, they're going to be up towards the top of the West. Because the thing about RSL is that it's Pablo ball, so they're always going to be tough to break down on defense. That's like Pablo just drills that into every team he coaches, is like, you're never going to score on us. But now he's also never really had like a roster like this where you have an elite number 9 in Chicho Arango, an elite MLS number 9, and then you have a young prospect who has a ton of upside with Diego Luna, where, like, just say for the sake of argument that Diego Luna like hits and breaks out like in a similar way that Leo Chu is for Seattle, say. I mean, all of a sudden you're talking about a loaded roster in attack with Chicho and Diego Luna and guys like Anderson Julio. Pablo Ruiz, who scored the really sick half field goal a couple weeks ago, he had 3 assists in this game. Right?
Crazy.
So,
but it doesn't count.
That doesn't count because they all came in one game. So,
correct.
Right, exact. Thank you for pointing that out. You have to discount that. But no, I mean, like, they had the type of performance where you can't not look at that and be like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We might be talking about something with RSL. They've been kind of like a Pablo ball grinded out team the last year and a half or 2 years, however long he's been there. They're cooking. They look like a forest in the West, and I'm predicting that that's going to continue. I just really like their roster. I think they've done really good work down there, and the Chicho signing was great. And they absolutely whammed on Orlando. Like, Orlando did not have a chance.
LAFC punching the air right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just funny, man. Like, Chicho was a big reason that they had a lot of the success that they did last year.
Yeah,
and they were still cooking earlier this season. With doing the Carlos Vela's, the false 9 thing, and they were making that work. But I think as much as the Champions League hangover and the fatigue, they don't have a number 9 right now.
No,
and
they don't.
They got and I think they know they got to go sign one. That's why they traded Opoku to get some salary cap space. Like it's LAFC, so you know they're going to sign some big time guy. They're going to sign some guy who's just as good as Chicho Arango.
Yeah,
like, you can write that down, and that's probably going to help them a lot. Until that happens, like, they could get over this hangover, and I don't know how much LAFC is going to be able to really like break out of this. Like, they need a number 9. They need a lot of stuff on their roster right now. They're going to be wheeling and dealing. That's why you see them making trades and stuff. So that's one to keep an eye on. The Houston Dynamo scored one of my favorite goals that's been scored in MLS this season in their 2-2 draw against Sporting Kansas City. This was one of those just really amazing team goals. Hector Herrera, their Mexico international, who's been playing increasingly better ball for them the last few weeks. He was really the orchestrator of it. It was just really good combination play where he combined with a guy at the top of the penalty area, and he backheeled it back to him, and Hector Herrera made the perfect run onto it they absolutely sliced up the Sporting KC defense on this play. The back heel finds Herrera perfectly, and then I love a unselfish pass to a guy in front of an open net for a tap in. Hector Herrera, that's just what makes him such a good player. Is he's not immediate. His first instinct isn't necessarily I need to score this myself because I'm in on goal and I have an angle where I can probably score it. He sees his guy wide open. Make the unselfish play, and it makes it look way cooler. It looked like a FIFA goal, so I wanted to shout that one out because it's probably not going to get goal of the week, but like a goal like that is goal of the week in my eyes just as much as a banger because that's just a great team goal. Like that's one of the best team goals that you're going to see all year. So good job by the Houston Dynamo. And I think that was pretty much it for episode 11, Noah. I think we can call it right there. I think we laid down some red hot audio there as always. So,
one thing I did forget during the U.S. game. I don't know if you saw this, but after the game there was a little scuffle as the teams went into the locker room, and allegedly it was over maple syrup.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, did someone steal the Tim Hortons from the locker room?
Yeah, no idea what happened, but just thought it was funny that Canada and Mexico B teams are fighting.
I'm sorry, Canada. I'm sorry. It's all out of love. And I really do think that your national team has made impressive strides in the last couple years. I mean, you guys won the octagonal. I really can't say shit. Like, you bammed on us really hard at Tim Hortons Field in the octagonal.
Correct.
And then won the octagonal. And
then proceeded to do absolutely nothing in the World Cup.
And then lost all 3 games at the World Cup and then got totally bammed on us in Nations League and then lost to us in the Gold Cup in penalties. And then had the Whitecaps lose to the Sounders. But, it's all out of love. It's all out of love. I got no animosity towards the country of Canada. I definitely got no animosity towards Tim Hortons. I don't know how much clearer I can make that.
Tim Hortons, sponsor the pod.
I think that, like, at this point, we deserve to be sponsored by Tim Hortons for the amount of Tim Hortons content that we've done on this show.
I agree.
Thank you, as always, to everyone who's been tuning in. We continue to put up really solid numbers. We're coming in at about 100 or 120 of you or so per episode, which is just really great. I love that we have that baseline, and I just really appreciate the support. It's been so much fun doing a podcast that people actually listen to and interact with. I'll do another round of questions and takes soon where you guys can submit your takes, and we'll talk about them on the pod. But for now, we're going to get out of here, and we will see you again after the Quakes game on Wednesday. We'll tee up a little reaction episode and break down that game and then preview the next game, which is, I don't even remember.
It's one of them.
They're going to be playing.
They're going to play
again.
soccer.
The games aren't going to stop. The grind is going to keep going, and we're going to keep grinding the content. Because we've been having a lot of fun with this content so far, and we're going to keep putting it out. So,
correct.
Until then, we out.
Peace.